My name is Kishore Chandiramani, and I welcome you all to this second in a series of 6 sessions on stress management. In this second session, I'll be discussing a model of the mind that can help us understand the common psychological symptoms and how they are produced. The mind can be understood in terms of 2 broad compartments: the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious mind is just the tip of an iceberg, and the rest is the unconscious. According to a rough estimate, only about 10 to 20% of our mind is conscious, and the rest is unconscious. The psychological implication of this is that when we experience extreme emotions, we have to say to ourselves that we are talking about only the 10 or 20% of the mind that is conscious, and the rest is unknown to us. The remaining 80 to 90% contains joys and sorrows that may be many times greater than the joys and sorrows we experience in our day-to-day life. It's important to understand that the experiences from the unconscious mind are constantly influencing our behavior. It is the unconscious mind which, although tiny, remains in good control of the unconscious mind. There are moments when the conscious mind gets overwhelmed by the unconscious mind for short periods of time, and this is when panic attacks, psychotic symptoms, and occasional suicidal thoughts that the person doesn't want to carry out at other times emerge. There are 2 different parts of the mind. The one that experiences an emotion can be described as the experiencing self, and the other part of the mind that is free from stress can be described as the observing self. Most therapies focus on changing the experiencing self, that is, our thoughts and emotions, whereas this program is aimed at changing the observing self, that is, changing the way we understand and emotionally respond to our own thoughts and emotions, which eventually changes our experiencing self. When we feel happy about something, or if the mind is constantly creating positive experiences, it is not free to work on the negative experiences. It's therefore logical to say that if one wants to work on the negative emotions, one has to let go of one's preoccupation and engagement with positive emotions for short periods of time. Psychological stress can be understood in terms of a gap between the demands placed on us and our ability to cope with them. If the demands are high, but the coping ability is also high, there will be no stress. Contrary to that, if the demands are normal or average, but the coping ability is low, there will be stress. To put it simply, I'd like to say that we can deal with stress at the mental level and at the physical level, and we can combine different strategies and work at both the levels rather than working at one or the other. The biofeedback treatment and relaxation exercises work at the physical level to undo the effects of stress, whereas cognitive therapies, mindfulness meditation, existential psychotherapy, and psychoeducation deal with the stress at the mental level. Now, I'd like to spend a few minutes on the physiology of stress. There are 2 types of physiological reactions, one that's under our control and the other that is outside our control. The nervous system that is outside our control is called autonomic nervous system, and this has 2 further components to it: the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. With anxiety disorder, the system prepares itself for an emergency when there is no actual emergency. It's like pressing the accelerator when the car is stationary. It leads to engine revving up. This is exactly what happens with anxiety disorder patients, where innocuous situations are being interpreted as threatening and catastrophic, leading to sympathetic overactivity. Security alarms are set off when there is no real emergency.